Kunda-what? Kundalini. You guys, this feels like the latest buzzword in the spiritual community, so naturally, I needed to know all about it. And Amanda Nova, a Kundalini facilitator and somatic practitioner, explains the powerful action of awakening your Kundalini that can lead to spiritual growth and transformation. Amanda also shares info about soul contracts from past lives and how we can be empowered to create new ones. If you're new here, you're listening to the How We Get Thru podcast, a place for you to feel connected through deep and meaningful conversations with healers from all over the world. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder and CEO of the How We Get Thru app. And my mission is to bring you affordable and diverse therapy resources to help you get through the hard stuff, all in one place and at your own pace. Welcome to the How We Get Thru community. Hello and welcome back to the How We Get Thru podcast. We have another fun spiritual podcast for normal people episode. We have Amanda Nova. She's a Kundalini facilitator. And if you're like, what the hell is that? You're in the right place. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So we were talking before, and obviously we want to know more about you and how you got to this point. But what I kind of explained how I saw you on social media was that you were doing really beautiful somatic work, a lot of good somatic reels. And then you had a baby, and then I saw you doing light language. And so I would love to know, kind of starting off, like, how did you start in helping people? And I'm guessing the catalyst to where you are now is having a child. Welcome. As it does.
Welcome. Yes.
Yeah. So where did you kind of start this journey?
Yeah. So it's been a long one, truly, and I'll try to keep it short without having anyone fall asleep. So I just the clip notes in is I was somebody who was sick and dealt with chronic pain for about 10 years. I had Lyme disease. I have a autoinflammatory condition called ankylosing spondylitis, which is arthritis of the spine.
Ooh.
And so I know. And so I spent a lot of time really looking and studying different types of holistic modalities, alternative medicine. And during, I would say, like probably the last 5 years is when I got really, really deep into it. I had become a health coach back in 2013, like before it was cool and a thing. And like now it's like, yeah, you know, I had a blog before people had blogs. Yeah. Now it's like, you know, it's all happening. So, so about 5 years ago, I started my Instagram just really looking to connect with people. And then I just started sharing the stuff that I knew from all these different studies I had been doing. And during that time, I went back to grad school and I got my master's in clinical nutrition. And so I was like doing this like really interesting combination of like clinical and alternative. So like I had like the clinical side of things, and then I was blending it with the somatics and acupressure and just like all these other things. And so I was doing that for a while and focusing on nervous system. Now everybody's focusing on nervous system, but I was like talking about the vagus nerve years ago. And now, and now I'm like, I don't even want to talk about it anymore, but we have to. But so then when I got pregnant with my daughter, like everything flipped upside down because I really couldn't do the same things I was doing, right? Like I couldn't even do, like I had been really into holotropic breath work, but I couldn't do that. And so I kept like getting these like random like pings about Kundalini. And I started studying Kundalini yoga thinking, okay, this is like what I meant to do. And then like, it didn't really click. I am not someone, because I am someone who combines all these things, I don't really do well with like the prescribed way of doing stuff. So like for me to study yoga and then they're like, you must follow this I'm like, man, I don't do that. Like so I kind of take pieces from everything that I learn and kind of like do my own thing. So I kind of like finished that like halfway, but I like never became an instructor because I was like, that's not really what I want to do. I kind of want to just figure out how to like help people with these different tools. And so I had my daughter, and then I just felt so disconnected from everything else I was doing. I was like, there's something is missing. Like I meant to do something more. I can't go back to anything I was doing. And I don't know how to move forward. Like there's no maternity leave when you work for yourself.
Yeah.
So it was like a big, like, who am I? What am I doing? And then one night I was actually feeding her when she was like a newborn. I was up in the middle of the night and I was feeding her and I saw somebody doing Kundalini activation. And Kundalini activation, for anyone that doesn't know, like, I know we'll talk about what it is, but it looks crazy sometimes. Like, people look like they're having an exorcism, people flailing around. And I was like, oh my God, that is so weird. What is that? I need to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
I need to do that. Like, it's like, think about like somatics to like the degree of like
Yes.
somebody's clearing things out of their body. And yeah, and then I just went on this journey of studying it. And the more that I did it and got activations, the more that my gift started to come on. And the more that I started to accept the gifts instead of questioning everything and being like, this isn't real. Like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And now I'm just kind of living this entirely different existence.
Yes.
now.
Wow. I love that. I mean, even just the point of having a child, how much that changes you, especially when you work for yourself. And I think a lot of people, and I can relate a lot to this, like, I can't go back, but I know there's something
Yeah.
ahead. And you're just in this like dark place of like, but
Yeah.
what is it? Like, just tell me, like, what is it? And then also, I think we're very similar of like, I see something, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I want to
Yeah.
see what that's like for me and see how I want to integrate that. If I like it, great. If not, I'll move on. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing.
My gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a dark time. Like, when I was like pregnant, I really struggled because also like I had made an entire business on Instagram.
Yeah.
Doing videos, touching my body. And then I was like, I don't really want to be on camera touching my body right now. Like, I just felt really protective of that, of my body during that time. I wasn't feeling 100% like I like was loving how I looked, like I was kind of just in this weird space. And yeah, I was like, wow, like this can't be really what I do going forward. And so I think that also changed like a lot. Like, I realized that I wanted to be more in person with people. I wanted to have deeper connections. I didn't really want to do as much virtual or digital stuff as I was doing. And like, it just kind of shifted everything. And yeah, I didn't really know what was coming. And I still am kind of feel like I'm on a journey and I'm a passenger and like it's a calling and like a vocation and I'm kind of just following it. But it wasn't like I chose to do this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But also too, if I can pull the string from where you started, it's still, I mean, life is just still unfolding. It's like these like deeper layers of knowing yourself. And what do you think about like divine feminine or the feminine traits for you right now, as far as like community or being in person or being a mother? Do you think there's anything that has like pulled you in that way? I know it's getting thrown around a lot.
Yeah, I think it was a really big challenge for me to step into that. Like, right now, I feel like I'm the most in my divine feminine. And the way that I look at divine feminine is like being in the receiving energy.
Yes.
Right? Of being in the slower, the receiving, letting the life unfold. Whereas like I spent the last, decade and a half, I was a brand manager. I worked in marketing in corporate. Like, I worked at Pepsi, I worked in like the food industry. And so I like had a very masculine career, in terms of like, I don't think of it as male and female of like, masculine is like, I was very like, I have to work, hustle. Then things happen and you can't anymore, but you still have to function. So like, I feel like for me, like it has played a big role in like how I view business and how I just operate from day to day and how I like allow things to happen.
Yeah. Instead of the hustling, going to get control, building, it's a little bit like almost sending it out and seeing what comes back. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And it's resting when you need to rest, which is like shocking to all of us, especially as moms.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you know human design?
I do a little bit. Yeah.
Do you know your type?
I'm a generator.
Okay. Yeah. You got that energy, girl. Yes.
I know. I'm a 5/1 generator. So I don't know if you know what that means, but apparently it's like Jesus energy. That's what somebody told me.
Really?
It's like, she's like, Jesus was probably a 5'1". I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's like a leadership stuff. I don't know what that means, to be honest with you, but that's what I was told. Like 5'1" is like some very intense
I love
thing.
that.
Someone will have to tell us what it means.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, I'm just wondering if it's just the energy to keep going no matter what's coming at you. Like
Yeah.
you're connected to
Yeah.
a higher purpose and that's what drives
Mhm.
you. And then everything else
Yeah.
can kind of fall to the side. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know what's also interesting? I've had a lot of people on the podcast that, especially women that have had a past marketing job, like a past life essentially, and then they're thrown
Yeah.
into this spiritual world and they're killing it because they know how to do it right, like when to kind of be in that masculine energy and like really understand. And at the same time, it's not gimmicky. It's now that they're in their female energy, it's just this offer. And there's
Right.
like a loosening of whatever's going to come in is whatever's going to come in. And so
Yeah.
it's just this really cool flip and almost this like merging of both the masculine and feminine energy. So congrats,
Yeah.
girl.
That's so funny. It's so interesting because I still love so much like the creative
Yeah.
piece of that. And, my brands that I have, and anytime I have a brand or what, like I do all my own stuff. I think that
Yeah.
people find that very shocking. Like my website, I do everything myself because I have that background.
Yeah.
And so like, and that's something that I so enjoy, but now I'm doing it A, for myself, and B, for things that I believe in versus doing it for, somebody else's brand that I maybe am like, you kind of don't
Yeah.
feel like right? It's like everything now is aligned. And that's like the difference, I think.
Yes. Yes. Ugh, I love it. Okay. So let's talk about your Kundalini journey. First of all, what the hell is it?
All right. So,
I know. How do you
Kundalini,
explain that?
all right. So Kundalini is becoming sort of like a buzz phrase, right? Because you do have Kundalini yoga, which a lot of people have done, right? Or maybe not. I feel like I always am like, you've done Kundalini yoga, right? People are like, no. So Kundalini is an energy that lives within all of us, and it's at the base of our spine, and it's coiled up. And so that's why it's often called the serpent energy, or you see a snake to symbolize it because it's coiled. When it uncoils, it sort of like slithers up our spine. And so the Kundalini energy, it lays dormant there unless it's awakened by something or another, right? And so it can actually become awakened by different things like Kundalini yoga, like yoga in general. Some people have awakened it. It can become awakened during things like sex. Like it can become awakened without you realizing it. And so it has a bad rap sometimes because people will awaken it and like have this huge awakening, and then they like feel like they're crazy, and then they'll like, there's all these things that are like Kundalini like makes you crazy. If you're doing it the right way, it doesn't, So
Yeah.
like the way that I do my Kundalini activation is like I'm activating your Kundalini to awaken or to rise through your body. So it rises up through the chakras and clears blocks, and it's like this beautiful, beautiful creative energy. Like it's creative energy, it's the divine feminine, the Shakti, it's like sensual, it's cosmic, it's like all these beautiful things, right? Like all the way up. And so my Kundalini energy activates your Kundalini energy. So that's the difference between like, let's say Reiki or something.
That was
like,
my next
it's like,
question. Yeah.
yeah.
What's the
Yeah, you have to have awakened Kundalini to awaken somebody else's.
Okay. Is it similar in Reiki of like putting your hands on or around a body, or what does it actually look like?
So like it's interesting. Like, so when I'm doing Kundalini, sometimes I'll touch people, like if I feel like they need to clear something. It's very intuitive. Like there's no script on it. And also like when I learned how to do it, I really just had like a bunch of activations. And then it kind of like came through, like my teacher never really taught us how to do it, which is why like so many people do it differently. And there's so many different ways. Like I just follow my intuition. So like whatever I see, so like I will use my hands to move the energy, and I kind of will be doing mudras and different things. But unlike Reiki where like there's symbols and you're kind of like holding over a spot. It's not really like that. It's kind of like coming
Slowly.
through my body and I'm kind of like moving with it, if that makes sense.
Yes. So it's almost like maybe a joining of the energies and then moving it versus I think Reiki's a
Right.
little less joining.
Right. Like Reiki is like pulling from the energies that are in the environment and the atmosphere and like using those to heal somebody else's energy.
Yeah.
Whereas Kundalini, it's like, okay, like mine is telling yours, wake up, right?
Uh,
So they're like, he's like, hey, what's up? Like, let's hang out, let's dance together.
yeah.
Okay. And so as yours rises, everybody has like a very unique experience with it because it's your Kundalini energy. Like mine's just saying like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Let's tango. And yours is like, okay, great. I'm going to start like moving. Right. And so as it moves, your expression of that is totally unique to you. So like it could
Really.
look like, it could be very sensual,
Like
it
having an
could
orgasm?
be, yeah, like some people can have energetic orgasms.
Yeah.
I have not had one yet, but
Well,
that would be
get ready, girl.
fantastic. I hope
Yeah.
so. Some people have psychedelic experiences, like they feel like they're like on an ayahuasca trip. Like
Yeah.
there's things, and then there's also like a lot of people who just start out, like just to build expectations. Like some people just feel lighter. Some people just
Yeah.
see some light. Like it's not totally insane. It doesn't have to be.
That's,
Like it can just be like just a hearing and a lightning and yeah, it doesn't have to be like very scary.
yeah. Do you think that has to do with like belief system? Like if they believe like it's not going to work or that it's kind of a weird thing that they'll have a different experience around that?
I think so. I think it depends on how open
Yeah.
you are to the energies. And it also depends on how open your body is and how open your Kundalini is already. Because, like, there are a lot of people that I work on who don't know that their Kundalini has awakened. And sometimes it's like stuck at a chakra. Like, worked on somebody last week who their Kundalini was like at their solar plexus. So it was like there, like it had raised up, but it wasn't like all the way.
Yeah.
And we want it, like when I do it, some people just raise it up, but I raise it up and down and we're moving it like,
Yeah.
all around. Like it doesn't just have to be up either. You want to raise it all around. There's actually 3 channels of Kundalini energy. And so 2 of them sort of like snake, and then one just goes up straight,
Oh,
up this
cool.
line. So you're activating those 3 channels and you're moving the energy like through those. So that's what I'm doing. And then like, yeah, depending on your expectations. A lot of people have these really intense expectations because what they see online of somebody moving their body, which doesn't happen, your first, second, third, fourth time. I don't think that I started moving till, I don't know, like I was already pretty open. I think my Kundalini had opened years ago, but it didn't move I didn't move the first time.
Yeah.
And so you have these expectations that I think that also ruins people's experiences because
Uh,
they think something is going to happen. And then the whole time you're like, well, when is it going to happen? And then they're like, I don't feel anything. And you're like, well,
there it is.
you
Yeah.
get what you need. Yeah. You
Yeah.
get what you need out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you start? So you saw that video of like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And then how did you get into it?
So I started immediately looking up schools because I was like, okay, like I know myself like really well. Like, okay, like if this is something I'm interested in and want to do, I have to learn it
Yeah.
because that's how I also transmute information to my audience is like I have to learn it, then I explain it
Yeah.
in easier to learn ways. So like I always have to become like an expert on something. And but it was really hard because everything was like in Bali, in person for like weeks. And I was like, I literally just had a baby. Like
Yeah.
I can't go anywhere. Like this is not
Yeah.
happening. And it was like everything was so expensive. And I was just coming off of like maternity leave. And so like I literally just threw it up to the universe. Like I was like, hey, like if this is what I'm meant to do and this is meant to be, like I will find somebody like that is
Local.
doing it online,
Well,
doing it virtually, like that does it virtually where I can learn and will be affordable, like that I'll be able to afford. And I think it was like within a few days, I found my teacher who I think she was in Bali at the time or Thailand, but she was teaching online
wow.
and I was able to do it and it was affordable. And I just started getting activations with her first and foremost. I did like an immersion of like doing, I don't know, like 6 different ones. And then I started to learn how to do it. And that's kind of like what happened. I started to be able to speak light language like through getting activation. So like that kind of all started to unfold while I was receiving activation.
Wow. Okay, tell everybody what light language is.
So light language is this channeled language that is essentially the language of our soul. And it can be channeling different celestial groups depending on what you believe in. So it could be channeling ancient languages. It can be channeling celestial groups like the Palladians, if you know, like star seeds, like that, those kinds of groups, right? So like the Palladians or the Arcturians, they'll come through. And it's because these higher frequency beings, and it's a high frequency language, it sounds like it's kind of like a bunch of sounds. And like you kind of like are clicking your tongue and it's a bunch of sounds and it sounds totally crazy. It sounds banana crazy.
Yes.
And it scared the crap out of me when I saw other people doing it. I never wanted to do it. And
here we are.
Yeah. And here we are.
Yes. How did you start speaking it? Were you just like in an activation and all of a sudden your mouth started moving? What did that feel like?
Oh my God, it was so weird. So again, like I didn't really like know what light language was. Like I had like heard about it before, but I wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
But I had seen people channel other languages and different sounds before, and it always really freaked me out. Like I was always like, that's weird. Like it always made me feel kind of strange.
Yeah.
You know, like I was like, I felt really like that's so weird. So I was in an activation and I was like somewhere else, like I don't know. And I started to first sign with my hands, like do like signing. And that kind of was the expression for like, I would say about a week. And to the point where like my dad was literally, we were talking one day and he was like, when did you learn sign language?
Oh
and I
my
was
God.
like, I don't know what you're talking about, but in that first like week, I was like uncontrollable. I talk with my hands a lot because I'm Italian.
Yeah.
But I was like signing like while we were talking and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. Like, what am I doing? And then I started to kind of like, so after that, like the next few activations I had, I started to just like let it come through. Like I felt the urge to speak. And I was like, what would happen if I just let it flow? Yeah. Like if I just opened, and it started with like a lot of like tongue clicking, like it was like kind of like, it sounded like that a little bit and like clicking. And then I looked up because I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? And then I learned what it was. And I was like, oh, like I started watching all these videos of people doing it. And I was like, that's what I'm doing. That's great. I was like, great, that's awesome. And then since that, like, it really has kind of like, just started to come through. Like, so different languages have come through. The more that I've let it come through, the more that it's come through. And now I can control it a lot more. Like, even during that time, it was coming out constantly. Like I couldn't be anywhere without like wanting it to like burst out of me. And now it's like, I can kind of like control it a little bit more.
Yeah. Wow. And when do you activate it? Like at what point are you like, I want to activate light language? Is it for healing? Is it for healing for yourself? Is it for connecting?
Yeah, I use it for both. So like sometimes like I use it for myself if I'm in meditation and I'm channeling or I'm speaking to a celestial group, because what I learned through all of this was that I had the ability to channel. And so like once that started opening, then I began channeling and like all these other things started to come through. So when I'm channeling, like sometimes I'll speak to celestial beings in light language. So sometimes I use it that way. Other times I'll use it while I'm working on someone. And I will use it to like clear a block or to transmute like codes to them, like light codes and different things, which is like kind of like light language, but like it's just like codes for healing, let's say, like just like frequency, right? It's just different frequencies to like clear things. And so sometimes I'll use it that way. And I use it a lot in like my Kundalini, just to like open the space and close the space. And if I do a past life journeying or Akashic journeying, I basically speak light language the entire time. So like I'm kind of speaking light language, and then it almost sounds like I'm speaking light language, and then I am what's the word I'm looking for? Like explaining to you in English like what I just said.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that's a wild experience. Like if you do that with me, like I literally, that is probably insane. Like I've only seen one other person do it that way, but it's like I'm kind of like taking you on a journey, and then
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm kind of like explaining
What
as I
happened?
go. Yeah.
How long is that typically for you when you're doing like those journeys in past life?
In past life journeys, I feel like it really depends. Like I kind of get glimpses sometimes. So like if somebody does it with me, like we'll go in, but like it's maybe a half hour. Like the Kundalini is a lot longer, but like a past life journey, like I don't stay too long. And the reason is because like usually I'll be shown some sort of trauma
Yeah.
that happened that like
You're-
explains why something happened. Yeah. And I'm like, we gotta get the fuck out of
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if you curse on it. I'm like,
Yes, you
we
can.
gotta get,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I'm like, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like this is like, and also think about like you're seeing these horrific traumas, because those are the things that stay with us, right? Like those are the lessons that we have to like, or the blocks that we have to clear. And then you have to tell somebody what you're seeing,
Right.
and like this horrible thing. And that's been such a challenge, because like I thankfully I've done it with a lot of people who've been really open, but like we're walking through something and I'm like, oh my God, like something is happening to you, like you're being assaulted. And like I'm seeing it, but I'm had to tell them like what's going on, and while I'm seeing it happen. And yeah, so we usually like with that kind of thing, we'll probably do like a half hour, and then we'll kind of like talk
Integrate.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do they find healing for themselves after knowing that past life piece? Do they feel like they have an understanding most times, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so, and I will say like on the, so that's like the past life and Akashic journey. When I do Kundalini, I also go into the Akashic, but I do it like on my end of things, and I tell them afterwards. And so
Right.
like the past lives they're always coming up during these sessions. And like the way that it helps people is like oftentimes like if there's a block that's coming up to be cleared, there's a reason. So like I'll give you like an example, like a connection. Like somebody came to me who was having fertility issues, and she was trying to get pregnant. And when we did a Kundalini session, like a past life of hers came up, and it was like that, it was a past life where she had been with this like really cruel man, and she was like a prisoner of war essentially, and like being forced to have these babies. And like she made a vow basically saying like, as her soul made a vow, and that shows up subconsciously of like, I will not have any more kids. Like I will not have kids. I do not want to give this man children, like blah, blah, blah. And then here she is now, all these lifetimes later, unable to have children. And like, I'm not going to say like medically that there's a connection, but like a lot of times, like that's how there is energetically and spiritually, where like, I said to her, like, sometimes like, you could feel that like, it's not a medical issue.
Yeah.
Like it's an energetic issue. And so those are the things that come up. And so like, or like my husband, like he was trying to get into advertising literally for 10 years. He's been trying to change his career. And like I worked on him, and we cleared all this stuff. Like he had like a wall that we like literally had to energetically break down. And I kid you not, like 2 weeks later, he got a job.
Oh my God.
Like it was crazy. So it really does like have the power to transform your existence, because you're changing things about your subconscious and your soul.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about, maybe not a lot about, but I've seen you talk about contracts, like soul contracts. Is that kind of, I mean, I've done a past life regression. I'm asking all the questions as if I don't know anything about it. I'm all down, girl.
Yeah.
The contracts, how would you explain like a soul contract? And in that example you gave with your client, did she make a was that like a contract with herself?
Yeah.
That she needed to reevaluate in this lifetime, or revisit, or break?
Yeah. So yes. So it's funny because like I've had past life regressions and stuff as well. And the way that I'm speaking about it now is like, this is my experience with people. Like, I don't know, like, this is just like my experience, right? So like, I know that there are contracts when it comes up with me and a client, like, and even with myself, and usually it's a contract or a vow, I'll call
It's
it. So like
about
I kind of use the two interchangeably. So like let's say she made a contract basically saying like subconsciously I made this contract as a soul, I am not going to have any more children, right?
Definitely.
So then what you need to do is you need to break that. So the way that I do it with my clients, because it comes up all the time, and I
Definitely.
hate even like talking about it because it sounds so like you have a demon and you need to light candles, and like it
yeah,
sounds so like it's
it
like I don't
can
know,
be.
there's like an ick involved. Like I don't want it to be like that. Like it's very, very simple. Like you literally break it by deciding to break it. And I will say, like, sometimes
Mm,
when I'm working on someone, like their guides will tell me to just break it. And then other people, like if they're a light worker or they have the power to do it, like they'll tell me, like, no, just tell them and they can do it themselves and they can do it in their own way. So like basically like what I do for myself is like I will like write a letter and just be like for whatever it is, like thank you for, I made this vow to X, Y, and Z. I made this vow to no longer have children and it protected me for this time because it protected me against blah 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 blah, right? I
Definitely.
no longer need this contract. Like, thank you for protecting me. No longer need it. And then you'll burn that. And then you'll
Definitely.
just like write a new one that's like, in this lifetime, I blah, 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 blah. Like, I
oh,
decided that I would love to have, like open myself up to that. I'm in a very safe relationship, like something like that. And then that one you can keep. And it's super duper easy. It doesn't like involve like buying any candles or doing anything weird, but
yeah,
it's just like, it's really making that promise to yourself. Or like, even with me, like I've seen my, like done it in meditation where you just like break it. Like you just
yeah.
are like, okay, I don't need this anymore. Like, let me break it and just like step through. And that's kind of like how we level up in a way, is like we
Definitely.
decide we no longer want that to be a part of our reality.
I love the way that you go about this too, because it's so empowering for the person, because we all have the power to do whatever we want, right? Instead of, I think where it gets really tricky and can be really harmful, where someone says, oh, you have something dark or whatever around you, I need to clear it for an extra amount of money or whatever it
Yeah,
is, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Like, because I've,
Yes. I don't offer any, I don't ask anyone for any extra money to
right.
clear those things. I just teach you how to do it and you can go do it yourself.
Yes,
Um, but
but it's
like,
out there.
you know, but it's out there. And to me, like the strongest thing, and I felt this to be true during my chronic illness journey, and I feel it to be true during the
Definitely.
spiritual, like knowledge is power, right?
Yeah,
So like a lot of people will say like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, well, now that you know it, it changes the way you think about things going forward. Like
right.
it's not really meant to like be like, oh, I have a, these horrible things happen to me and I can't function. Like it's just meant to know
That's
this happened. This is why I maybe am XYZ. And maybe this is why I'm afraid of heights. Or like maybe this is why like you know, maybe this is why I love Spain because I had a lifetime. It's just learning about your soul. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be so deep. Like it can
yeah.
just be like, this is just learning more about who I am.
really fair.
And that's why I always say to people, like, if you believe it, it can be so powerful. But if you don't, like,
Yeah.
that's fine.
That's
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, but if you do believe it, like, it can be really fun and exciting. And like, it's just about learning more about who you are.
Yes, exactly. And I've worked with a ton of energy healers, and there has been, I mean, probably the biggest one for me was, I mean, he's like, I'm clearing, I cleared this, this, and this, but this is for you to clear. And I was like, but I
Well,
also was like, okay. Like, and that threw me on a
yeah.
journey into another space of like, okay, I can do this. And there's something here for me that I need to look at that someone can't just take away from me, Like,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
is empowering.
100%.
That is helpful. That is the mirror. There is something, it's like, hey, look at this and then see what you want to do with that.
Yeah. 100%. And I can't do that work, right? All I can do is reveal to you
Yeah.
these things. Like I can awaken these pieces of you. I can awaken remembering. Like I know that
um,
that's a big piece of like why I'm here is to awaken people to remember who they are. But you need to do the work to
Yeah.
become that version of you or to clear all of the things. Like I can only sort of like bring you the information and like open you to receive it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of times with people, like that's exactly like I tell them what they need to do. And also, I will say, like, I think a big, big piece that is missing through all the past life regressions and all the stuff that's going on right now, like in people doing readings and stuff, is like I have the ability to channel this information to you, but I am not a therapist. So I cannot be the person that fully unpacks it with you. Like, we can talk about what you felt during Kundalini, we can talk about the past life, we can talk about what that means.
Yeah.
But like, when super big traumas come up for people, like, it's also really helpful to have like the proper team in place. Like, I am not a psychologist, and I will tell you, like, I've had a therapist for 7 years that, like, whenever I went through these things, like a breath work or Akashic records or anything, like, I was going and unpacking those traumas. Like, you can't just be like,
Yeah.
because sometimes it can mess you up a little bit too. So it is helpful to like have support.
Yeah. As a therapist, I appreciate that comment.
But it's true, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not my job. I mean, and I will say to people, like, I'm not qualified to do that. And
Yeah.
I don't. So like, it is kind of this delicate balance of like, I want you to understand that this happened and how it's showing up in your life, but like, the work to really work through that, like, is on you, but then you can still have other support. It's really like a team that's going to get you through.
Yeah. And I think it is, I mean, a therapist, I mean, I'm like spiritual and sometimes that comes in, sometimes that doesn't. But a therapist, I feel what you're saying is working through this 3D lifetime, even if you're learning something from the past, but it's like, oh, this is impacting me in this moment in this body. And so
Right.
I think that's really important to, like, you can't just like work on the spirituality without working on your present part either.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And you can't experience anything spiritually if you're not regulated, too,
Right.
which is like how I've kind of like connected a lot of like,
Somatic.
doing the nervous system work. Yeah, the somatics of like doing that work prior to now doing this. Like, I can't leave that all behind because these are high frequencies and high vibrations, and your body can't hold those if you're not regulated. So like, there will be some times where people will receive an activation and they're like super anxious afterwards. And it's not because something went wrong, but it's because that's a lot of energy, right?
Yes.
And they're holding it now in their body, and they don't have like the ability to get rid of it, or B, maybe they were just like not in a regulated state to begin with. So then it kind of like makes, they can't hold that much energy.
Right.
So I think that people go on these spiritual journeys and they don't realize that like, you also have to like be in a good headspace.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be physically in a good place, like, to hold all of these things and for them to continue, right? Or you'll like do it and then it won't stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had anybody that you've done any energy work or Kundalini and it wasn't right for them, or it wasn't the right time? Or do you feel like you're able to kind of call in the right people at the right time when they're ready? Like, or I guess the better question is, who is this not for?
Like, right.
That's my question. Who is this not for?
That's right. Yes. So for the most part, I feel like the people that I've worked on are really people who are open to it. Like, I do try to call in people who are aligned, like people who will value it.
Yeah.
I think like, I mean, I don't know 100%. Like, I feel like there's been maybe like one person I can think of that like had zero reaction, but they were like super distracted during it and was like yelling things like at their kids. And I was like,
oh yeah,
okay.
they weren't
like,
present.
You know what I mean? So then they were like, I didn't really feel anything. And I was like,
of course not.
Were you here? Like, what do you mean? So I think it's like, if you're not able to like be present, be in the room, like, you have a lot of things going on and you can't get to that space, like, you can't calm your mind for like a minute. I've also had people who like have a lot of chaotic energy like that, where they have a lot going on and they'll come to like a class. And there was somebody who I was just chatting with after a class, an event that I had a few weeks ago. And I said to her, I was like, I couldn't open you up because you were swirling. And she was like, yeah, I have so much going on. Like, and so those types of people, like, I can't access your energy field because it's like a tornado is kind of like how I see it. So like, you don't have to be in like a perfect Zen Buddha place, but like, if you're in like the middle of a shitstorm, it's not, don't come, because like, you know what I mean? Like, it'll help you, but like, you won't get the most out of it. Also, I will say too, like, I've had a lot of clients, because of just the climate that we're in, like, cancel, or they'll message me and they'll say, hey, I'm sick. should I come? Will the healing be good for me or will it be not? Like, they're like, hey, like I, have COVID or something, like, right, like
Yeah.
have something going on. And I always tell people like that the energy can benefit that, but then that's where all the energy is going. So I
Uh,
also tell people, like, if you have a cold, if you like have something going on physically, like it's not the time to come because the energy will help heal that, but then you're not experiencing it because
yeah.
Kundalini, like in relation to somatics, is like I do a lot of somatics and breath work prior to doing the activation with people. Like I run them through somatic work and breath work and combine them because you can feel Kundalini in your body. Like it's something that you also physically feel. So like if you are like sick and you can't breathe, it's like
Yeah.
this is not going to be the best experience. And I want people to have like transformative experiences that they
Uh,
can feel. Like that is like what I always ask for, like whether they can see colors or they see things or they feel tingling. Like I want people to really, really have like a true experience, and really feel it.
yeah. So it sounds like somebody who's regulated, grounded, and open feels like the best
Yeah.
candidate for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then being open, yeah, is like super important.
Yeah.
Um, People that have had energy work before are super open, but that's not a requirement. It really just depends. People that do breath work, like things like that, those are things that raise your vibration. So obviously the higher your vibration, the better that you'll do. And the thing with Kundalini is like, once it's open, it'll open it all the time during other things. So like you'll notice that like once it's open, like you'll be doing breath work or you'll be meditating, you'll start like swirling. Like sometimes
Oh,
I saw something online today and I started swirling. I was like, whoa, that was energetic AF. I don't know what it was. It was some
wow.
ancient something or other. And I was like moving and I was like, whoa. So once it's open, it's open. Like it doesn't like go
Okay.
back to sleep. Like it's awakened.
Yeah. And would that person be able to connect with that more often, or do they have to like it? I heard you say that to go for multiple sessions or people go for multiple sessions. Is that
I
just if
heard.
they have an energetic block, or is that to keep it open? Like what?
Yeah. So the energy of Kundalini is always evolving. So it's always changing. So your experience is actually different every time. Like I just had a client just before I hopped on with you, and it was her second one, and she was like, "Wow, that was so different than last time." The more that you do it, the more that you experience, and it does evolve. And Kundalini actually evolves through stages. So like the first couple of stages are very subtle. Like you might feel tingling or a temperature change, or you'll cough to like release something. And then after that, you might start doing mudras with your hands. Then you might start moving. Then you might start doing yoga. There's people who do like spontaneous yoga poses, like because you just feel like your body needs to move.
Wow.
And then after that, it becomes a lot more graceful again. Like it kind of is like a bell curve. Then it kind of gets like super subtle, and you just have then it's like there's shifts coming on and seeing things and like so really like as much as everyone's unique, like it evolves over time. So I do recommend people coming to do it more than once, like because it's not enough to just awaken it. Like it has to be flowing through your body more than once for it to evolve to a place where you're really getting the most benefit out of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
when
But you
you
can do it on your own. Yeah.
okay. And when you see the three energies, are you actually like, do you visually see it or do you feel it? What is your experience of that?
I usually feel it. So like whenever I'm over, like so when I'm doing Kundalini, and I don't know if this is the same for anybody else, like my teacher, like she would say like I don't know how anybody does Kundalini with their eyes closed. Like she looks at the body, and if there's like cues in the body, and that's how she can do. I sometimes like have my eyes closed and my like eyes are like back because I'm actually like feeling into it on an energetic level. It's a little bit different. Like
Yeah.
I get visions while I'm doing something. So like I'll be like over, let's say like I'll be over. I sometimes I see like the snake coming up, and like so I don't see like the three all the time. I see like more like representations, or like I'll see somebody's heart like in a glass box, and I'll know that there's like something there. Or like I pulled a weed out of somebody the other day. I was like just like pulling this like weed out. Like I just
Wow.
kind of go with whatever I see. So like for me, like it's this mix of like this channeling and visual. And then I also write, like I kind of am writing while it's going on because I'm like things are coming through, and people like, I'm getting messages or I'm doing light language and then I'm in a past life. Then I'm like in your Akashic
Oh
records.
shit.
What happened? Yeah. And that's like my one-on-ones, like my events. I don't do that. But like,
Yeah.
one-on-one, like I'm in your past lives, I'm in your Akashic records, like I'm writing things down. I'm like up here, like during the activation. It's like a pretty wild experience.
How do you feel? Do you have to ground yourself a lot before, and how do you feel after a session?
Yeah, I always tune in beforehand. So I always try to give myself like at the very, very least 15 minutes. I mean,
Mm,
it's hard with a baby.
yeah,
Like a half hour to, like my teacher would be like an hour. It's like I literally wish I could, like
right.
God bless. Like I don't always have the time. I will do probably like a half hour or I just kind of like I tune in. I say like my prayers to kind of call in the Kundalini to be protected. I also pray like, when I say pray, like it's not like pray isn't like I talk to my guides, right? And like I kind of will say my things of like, I want that person to have the best experience. So like, in the higher good, and I call, I do that a little bit just to kind of like tune in. Sometimes like if I'm really strongly connected with the person,
Mhm.
I tune into their energy beforehand. Like I had a client who I was doing my prayers, like I think it was last week I had someone and I was like all of a sudden in their past life. And I was like, okay, like I'm like, I
We're
was
not
like
there
wrote
yet.
something down
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, like we'll go in.
Oof.
Afterwards, like I usually will try to like I close out with the client. I started doing that because I was forgetting to close out and then I had energies like open like
Yeah.
all day and I was like, it's crazy. But I will say that I only do one a day
Good.
for the reason of like it drains my energy
Yeah.
and it's just
It's a lot.
for the better. Yeah, it's a lot. So like I really just do one a day and that's kind of how I protect myself with it.
Yeah. What's the wildest thing that you've seen in doing this work? Like, what has like kind of blown your mind, either in your own journey or in leading other people through this?
I think the wildest is probably like the experiences that I've had like with like other beings that are like things that are like not supposed to be real. Like I had a client once and I literally started like speaking like draconian, like a dragon. And it was like crazy because you kind of feel like you're breathing fire and that's how it sounds. It's very like the language of draconian is like it's like
Oh my
very
God.
crazy and I didn't know I could do it. I had never heard it before. Like I had to figure out afterwards. I do a lot of like post research to kind of like
What
check
the fuck was that?
myself.
Where
Like,
do you even
yeah,
research that?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like it's like I go on Google. Also, like I will say I do that historically as well. I have no information on history, geography. I was not there that day in school. I did not pay
No.
attention. I was not into it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I end up in places and then I have to ask my husband afterwards. Like
Yes.
I'm be like, was this war? Like were these people in this war? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, great. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Because like I
Seriously.
end up places and I'm like, I don't know where we are. I don't know why I'm
Yeah.
saying this. So I had something come through for someone. I was literally like speaking like a dragon. And again, like I will say, like I'm a rational New Yorker. I'm a rational human being.
Yeah.
If it didn't come through this way, I wouldn't believe it. And so it has to come through this way for me of like, I have no control over this. I'm speaking like a dragon. Like this is wild. And so I said to them afterwards, like, I was like, do you have any connection to dragons? Like, what's the deal with the dragons? And like, she literally pulled up the book, the Sophia Code about the dragon tribe and was like, oh, like, I'm like learning about this right now. And I was like, oh, I'm like, well, yeah, you're like really involved with them because I was like speaking dragon
Oh
language
my
while I
God.
was working on you.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, how has your gifts in your journey impacted your relationships, if at all?
It's a good question. My husband is not, I'll say this, he's not into this stuff, but he's very open.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like, he wants to hear everything, but he's not like there with me
Yeah.
during it, if that makes sense, but he'll receive.
Yeah.
So like, it has been really great. Like the more open that he's become, like the more that I feel like I've also been able to help him on his journey because like doing that for him. And I think also like when that whole thing happened for him of like then getting a job, like his dream job, I think
he's
he
like,
was
this
like,
works.
he's like, this is real. Like, what?
Yeah.
And it's the other people, like the other people in the family, they, I think, are open in the way that they like support me. Like my mom, like she was one of those people who I would say like she's received so many Kundalini activations because she comes to everything that I do. And it took me probably like 4 times to open her up. Like
Wow.
and I always have her talk at the end of an event or something because like people ask questions and I'm like, my mom is here and she finally feels something. It took me like 5 times, but now she'll be like, oh, there was like a pressure in my chest and I saw this and I saw that. And like she like, but it took me a while to crack her. Like
Wow. Yeah.
she was like,
She
she
showed up,
just was
but
like
wasn't super open yet.
wow, she wasn't like cracked her
Yeah.
open. And like my dad will say like ridiculous things. Like he'll be like, what did the Kundalini tell you today? And I'm like, he'll be like, did the Kundalini tell you that we're gonna get a house? And I'm like, it doesn't work that
No.
way, but okay.
Oh my God, I love it.
So yeah, I mean it's been fun. I think like it's been interesting as a mother because
So
I've really, really tried to embody this is who I am, and who I am in everything that I do is like this energetic being. And that's like challenging because a lot of times I'm like talking to celestial beings and then like 5 minutes later I'm like getting like, a tater tot thrown in my head
yeah.
and I'm a priestess, goddess, and then I'm like literally
Nope.
like getting hit in the face. Like my daughter's like hitting me and I'm like, I'm
You know
not
what
a
she
priestess.
is? She's grounding in this life for you.
Yes,
That's what she's
yes, she
doing.
is like anchoring me. And
Yeah.
so like
Mm.
it's funny, but then the other night, like she's a terrible sleeper and like
Ugh.
she was streaming and my husband was holding her, she's almost won. And I was like, I'm gonna just tune into her energy for a sec and like let's see. And I asked permission because like,
Yeah.
I was like, I worked 2 days and I was like, hey, like can I see what's out there? Like her guides were like, yes. And I like ended up in her past life and like cleared it. And then she went to sleep. And I was like to my husband, I was like, so I was just in Ari's past life, has some trauma around sleeping.
God. Oh my
But like
God.
and then it's the first time I've done that in the last year where I like really like was like, let me go. But she was not, she was screaming. I was like,
This is it.
all right,
Yeah.
mommy's done with this. Like, let me just go and like see. And I was like doing like Kundalini while I was like behind him. I have to hide because if she sees me, she'll never go to sleep.
Yeah.
And so I was like doing Kundalini while he was like holding her like in another room. And like,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
it was wild.
What do you have a significant past life or when you look back that is important to you in this lifetime?
It's funny. There's so many that I've uncovered that like I feel connected to. The ones that tend to be like closer to this incarnation are the ones that
Mm.
like stuck with me for a longer period of time and like that like bothered me. And like I had one where I was completely like, I think it was the one right before this one, and it was like in the 80s, and I was born in the 80s. So it was like one that like was like I died and came right back.
Yeah.
And someone who had done a past life regression, like on me, had told me about this. So like this wasn't like I didn't discover this, they had told me.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, you came right back. And this lifetime, like I was a man, I worked in finance, I was like I was like Wall Street
Looking for a man in
vibes, like,
finance.
yes, 6'5", that was me. Like that was me, like hottie with the body.
Wow.
But I had like this crazy traumatic thing happen, like with my wife, like she died, and like drugs and all this crazy stuff. And it really, really impacted the way that I view success. And that was a contract that I ended up having to break when I ended up learning how to do all this and tapped in myself. I was like, oh, like there's a contract here, like this. But when I first heard about the lifetime, I was like, I had a knot in my stomach for weeks. And because I felt it, like I was like that, and it like just happened.
Yeah.
Like I was like, why the hell did I come back again to New York? Like, why am I
Right.
doing this? Like, and now it's the funniest thing about the whole thing is I literally cannot like add two numbers together. Like I was like, I will not be good at math.
We are done with math.
I am not going to be finance. I hate
But we
money.
love
I
New
hate
York.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yes. I was like, I don't hear it. But yeah, like I don't know. So some of them, like I think, impact more than others.
Yeah.
Just based on like how they feel, and then there's space, and it gets, you get over it. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, some of them like can hit you pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I've only seen, sorry, I'm just like doing random questions now,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I've
yeah.
only seen women do light language.
Oh,
Can men do light language? I'm sure they could. But
yeah,
have you
I
seen
think
a
so.
man do it?
I have.
Okay.
I've seen men do it like on TikTok or like in, on YouTube and different things
Okay.
during research. And then also like I feel like I was awakened like when somebody was channeling an ancient language, like light language, some shaman. I went to like a shaman virtual experience during the pandemic
Mhm.
and like just it was like something that they were doing. It was like a free on Sundays for like, just like the collective,
Yes.
like free. And like that was like I think the first time like Kundalini awakened, like they were speaking in some like ancient tongue and I was spiraling. Like I was swirling around and I felt
Wow.
so much like bliss and happiness. And like it wasn't obviously until now that I realized what happened then. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know like what it was. I was just like, why am I meditating and like swirling? And I think that that was light language. So I think that men can do it. I think women are
Okay.
just more open to this kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Like, and it's kind of flowy and feminine, and I don't know. I
Yeah.
just, and it's high
Yeah. It's
pitch
beautiful.
ish.
Yeah. Yeah. It would actually be really funny, like hearing a man like speak
That's what I,
fairy or something, or
yeah.
like,
Maybe
yeah, like,
dragon, but
yeah, like dragon, like draconian. I mean, yeah. I mean, sometimes I go into some of the frequencies that are so high and ridiculous. Like if I do speak like fairy,
yeah.
it's like you're kind of like really high pitched and you're kind of like giggling and it sounds really like silly. Like it's kind of like you're like,
Yeah.
it's like my husband was, I recorded myself once doing it. My husband was like,
What is?
don't share that with anyone. I was like, and then we were laughing about it for weeks because I was like, yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love it. Were you a
So at
fairy?
least I can laugh at it.
Were you a fairy in a past
I
life?
I have connections to the fairies. I don't think I was a fairy, but I
Mhm.
spent time with them. Like that's kind of like what I had downloaded was like I spent time
That's
with the
the
fairies and they're like kind of a part of my existence, but like yeah, and I just believe that these other beings are like on other dimensions.
currently.
Like I
Yeah.
think it's just like yeah, like I
Uh-huh.
just think it's different dimensional things that you're kind of like tapping into. And so like yeah, I think I just hung out with them a
Yeah.
few times.
Are you from the stars as well? A Palladian or a starseed?
So
This is so fun for me.
I
Sorry.
I know it's super cool. I was on this journey of trying to figure out like where I was from.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I was being like trying to put myself in a box. So like I am
Uh,
from source. I have learned that I wasn't really like how do I explain it? Like I was originally like an energy or a deity or like I worked on the Akashic records and I like basically had to like ask permission to like come down to earth. Like I wasn't really like supposed to be a human. Like I was like,
yeah.
okay, like I want to go do this. Like this looks super fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Silly me, right? Like I'm like, that looks awesome. Let's go do that. And I had to like ask permission. And so like that was kind of my thing. And then I started like incarnating. So I'm like very, very old and like am
Uh,
from like, just like this like source energy of like the beginning.
yes.
of, but I have spent time with the Palladians. I have spent time in Mintaka, which is a really old constellation that doesn't exist anymore. The Atlanteans, the
Yeah.
Lemurians, the Illyrians. I spent time with all. And so I actually, some people only speak one light language. I speak several
Wow.
light languages. So, and that's just kind of new ones just kept continuing to come on.
And they are like, you start speaking the language and then you hear what it is. Like, how do you know what language it is?
It's just like a no. I just know.
Just
It's like,
know.
yeah, I just know.
Okay.
Like, I just like sometimes it'll just kind of like, and then after you do it so many times, like
You're like, yeah.
yeah, you're kind of like, okay, like I know what they sound like now.
The
But like, yeah, before, like, it would just be like a knowing, or like, I would just like see it in
yeah.
my head. Like, I'd see like the word. Because a couple times, like, I'll channel, like, even now, like, I'll channel groups and like, I'll ask them who they are. And then, like, I don't know who it is. And like, then I'll try to find it. But like, what am I trying to find? Like,
Right. Right.
online. Like, what am I trying to find? Like,
YouTube?
I was literally, yeah, like Googling, like I'm online and I'm like, who is this celestial group? And then it's like from like a video game.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Exactly. To my fantasy smut series. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, I mean, I just kind of take take it the best that I
I love
can.
that. I was listening to a podcast the other day with this guy, Matt Kahn. I think he accesses Akashic Records as well. And I just loved what he said because he said, it doesn't matter if it's made up or if you have these beautiful experiences or whatever it is. It's who you are after that experience that matters.
Mhm.
And that's what
Yeah.
I think, like, we're such normal people, but also have had experiences that have opened us up to something really beautiful and a different type of healing or whatever it is. And that's the thing to like remember is like I'm different because of that in a better way. Um, so if you're like listening to this and be like, what is happening? Like it's like you don't have to believe it, But
Yeah.
for you, it's brought something really pure in your life that you can facilitate and feel. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you feel
Yeah.
whole in some way? Do you feel like, whoa, like not that you have it all figured out, but you have maybe all of the pieces to access?
I feel like I understand why I'm here. And I feel like I am really working with my purpose. And I don't think it's the whole picture because I don't
Yeah.
think we're shown the whole picture, but it is the first time in my life where I do feel like, okay, like I know what I'm here to do, at least in this moment. Right. And so like, and that's what I'm doing. And it feels really aligned and purposeful. And I feel like I question a lot of the validity of all of it, like because I am a rational person, like I have those two sides. And I think for me, it's like undeniable because of A, what I've experienced, and B, what I've seen other people experience. Like it's like I know that I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said before, like it had to happen to me this way so that
Yes.
I would believe it. Cause like otherwise I would have been like, this is crazy. But like, so I do feel that it's like, it's definitely changed who I am and how I view myself. And also that has been what's allowed me to open it and share it with other people. Cause like, I know that for me, it's real. And I also get the side of it that like, you might not think so. And like, that's totally okay. But like, I know who I am and I know what my experience is.
Yeah.
And for me, it's real. So like, and it really can only help you. Like what I do, I think like, because people like religious people will come at me like all the time, like saying that like, you're like the devil.
Yeah.
And like, they're really like in what I do is nothing negative, right? Like there's nothing bad essentially, like I'm gonna like back up a little bit. Like it's not, you're just bringing light into somebody's body and somebody's life. And so like at the end of the day, if you don't believe it, nothing.
It's not for you. Yeah.
Yeah, that is not for you. That's it. Like, it's not like, I'm not gonna hex you. Like,
No.
I don't know how to do that, so it's not, there's really no like dark magic involved here.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh, I love that. Okay, so how do people work with you? What does that look like?
So you can work with me either by doing a Kundalini activation virtually, or you can work with me doing a past life Akashic journeying. So we talked about both of those things. Or you can find me online, and I have a Substack now where I have a little membership for people to kind of like experience some of these things and do guided meditations on their own.
Cool.
Or I'm at events that I'm in New York. Yeah. So I know it's tough for people.
Yeah. And you also make jewelry.
Oh, I also make jewelry. Yes. So I've been channeling very intentional handmade jewelry. That was another thing that came out of this whole experience. I don't know why. I just started doing it. It's also been very weird. But I love it so much. So I make malas, I make bracelets, and they're all like infused with energy. And they're really cool.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Okay. Anything else that you want our listeners to know about Kundalini or the light activation before we head out?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to talk so much more about all the things. So
thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to our show. If you're curious about your own Kundalini activation, reach out to Amanda to get the ball rolling. And as always, I greatly appreciate you guys being here with open ears, minds, and hearts. We'll see you next time.